Hello guys, in today's video I'll be talking about the deprecation of toPromise in RxJS 7. So this is how the video will go. We will first review how we used the toPromise, how it works, and then we will discuss why they deprecated it, and then we'll be talking about the new replacement of the toPromise and whether I like it or not, and then we'll have a few practical examples to understand this new alternative. And after that, we will be handling some errors that might happen with this new alternative. So first of all, let's have a quick example on how the toPromise function works. So I've got like an up and running Angular project. So all we need to do right now is like to create a new observable. So let's do that in a function. I will call it get todos function, right? And here we go. It only emits one value, which is to do one, and then it completes. Okay. So if we're not using the toPromise conversion, we just subscribe to that and get that value, right, from the observable by doing so. So let's save that and see what happens in the browser. We just need to call that function. And here we get our to-do. So what people used to do to use the toPromise instead of subscribing is simply doing so. We declare a constant called value, and then it equals the data observable dot toPromise, which apparently deprecated as you see here, and then we await on it. So this returns a promise that we can extract the value of it using the await, right? But we gotta, add the async notation here. So after that, we can like console log the value we got from that toPromise conversion. So I'll save that and see what happens. And here we have it. So this was sweet, really. Like people loved it. I loved it personally. The syntax itself looks prettier, and one line thing. It's really sweet. So this comes to the question: why they did deprecate it, right? So before I read that to you, I want to give you like a practical example to understand it better. So let's get back here and let's emit more variables from that observable. Like let's add more to-dos, like to do 2 and 3. So now this observable doesn't emit one value, it actually emits 3 values before it completes, right? So before we save that and run that code and see what happens, yourself could start wondering, oh, okay, so which value I'm getting in the toPromise out of that, conversion. So this is one of the reasons, actually, the name itself of the function doesn't indicate which value are you getting of the multiple emits, and that's one thing. The other thing is not having the capability of selecting which value you need. So if you know that this observable emits 3 values like so, and maybe you want to select one of them, right? So this function doesn't have that ability as well. So these are basically 2 main reasons why they deprecated the toPromise. Before we move forward, let's run that code and see what happens. So we're getting the last value out of the observable before it completes, right? To do 3 here. So this is how the toPromise works. It basically gives you the last value before the completion of the observable. Okay, maybe you need the first one or the last one. What are you gonna do? So that's the thing. So they got a point actually, and this is why I like the replacement so much. So let's talk about that replacement. Okay, so they gave us two new functions to replace the old one, which is the toPromise. They give us firstValueFrom and lastValueFrom. The name itself is super, self-explanatory. So the first one gets the first value out of the observable, and the second one gets the last value out of the observable, right? Let's try that out practically. Getting back here, you're maybe worried about losing this convenience of having the one-line thing, right? Conversion. Don't worry about that, because the new function as well looks as convenient as the toPromise. First value from. You just need to import that from the RxJS library. Now we have it here. And this is how sweet it looks, So let's run the code and see what happens. Now we're getting the to-do one this time, right? But if we use lastValueFrom, which needs to be imported as well, and run that code, now we're getting the last value. So you could say that the lastValueFrom function behaves the same as the toPromise one, because they both get the last value out of the observable. So this gives you an insight of the change that needed to be done in your system. Maybe you use toPromise everywhere, and you got a big system that you need to introduce that change to it. So all you need to do actually is just replacing the toPromise with the lastValueFrom, and that's it. I want to try something different. Let's import HTTP client, from Angular common HTTP, and let's declare it here. All right, we need some API to call it to get some data from. So we can get some dummy JSON from the JSON placeholder thing. We need just come here, right? Yeah, so this dummy data we get from that link, so we can use that URL to get the data we need. So we have to-dos URL, which equals to this. In real world, we should put that in the environment, right? So instead of having the data as an observable like so, we will create an HTTP request using the Angular HTTP client with the GET request and just the to-dos URL. And the question you may ask, which one I should use with the HTTP request. So we used to do so. We used to do data.toPromise, and then we get the data out of that API in the value variable. We need to replace that with a comma here. Yeah. So we got the data from the dummy.json API using the toPromise conversion. So if we move back to the new alternative, lastValueFrom, as we said before, it behaved the same as the toPromise, right? So we still get the data. What about using the firstValueFrom? Still the same, right? So what's going on here? So firstValueFrom and lastValueFrom basically behave the same if the observable that we're converting is only emitting one value. So if you get back here, and only emit on value. So it doesn't really matter if you use firstValueFrom or lastValueFrom. They both will pretty much return the same value, which is to do one, because it's the only value actually we're getting out of that observable. Let's try that. Yeah, same value. All right, I guess we practiced a little bit, the two new alternatives of the toPromise. So now let's get to some error handling, right? Now we're talking about the error handling of the new alternative, of the new replacement of the toPromise. So we've got, three different errors that we will be talking about. We've got the empty error, which is, when your observable doesn't emit any data at all and completes before emitting any data. And we will be handling the null or undefined value. It's basically not an error, it's just a value. But what if you don't want to give the user null or undefined, right? You want to detect that and replace it with something else. And then we'll be talking about something different. If we have any kind of different errors other than the two above. So let's get back to the code and produce some errors. So let's comment that out. Now we have an observable that doesn't emit any data, right? It just completes. And you're using the lastValueFrom with that observable. What's gonna happen? All right, no elements in sequence. You're getting an error. Okay, so how to handle that? So lastValueFrom and firstValueFrom gives you the luxury of declaring a default value. Okay, so let's say that in case you got no value, I will return that default value. Let's see if this works. Yeah, we're getting the default value out of it because the observable we're listening to is not emitting any value. So that's basically for the empty error. Moving on to the null or undefined. So if the observable emits a value, but that value is simply undefined, right? Unfortunately, this will be returned as a value, undefined. But you don't want that, right? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But if you don't want the undefined value, you want to detect that and replace it, whether it's undefined or not, you can use this new operator of JavaScript and put some default value in here. It should be the same, of course, but in order to differentiate, let's add 2. Yeah, so we're getting the second default value, which is here. So this operator to handle the null or undefined. Yeah, so that operator, if you don't know it, it's a little bit different than that operator, because that operator will give you that default value even if it's like 0 or falsy value, basically. But that one is only for the null or undefined, not for the false, not for the 0 value. So this is basically for the null or undefined. What about any other error that might happen, like maybe this API returns an error or so? What should we do? You should basically handle all the other errors the same way you handle any error with the async await, right? Just by using try and catch, like so. So we get try, okay, and we have an error here, and you do whatever you want to do with that error in here. So this is how we handle all the other kind of errors that may happen with the lastValueFrom and firstValueFrom. So guys, this is basically it for this video. Let me know if you like that new alternative of the toPromise and you'll be using it. Or do you have any concerns about it? Do you still prefer the toPromise? So let me know that in comments, and please subscribe to my channel because I will be uploading more videos about RxJS and Angular, and I hope you like it. So have a good day. See ya.